Sunday, November 28th, 2021. Today on the Daily Review, we finish up part 3 of the Beatles' Get Back 8-hour-long docu-series on Disney Plus, directed by Lord of the Rings' Peter Jackson, with your host, me, Joe. I got a feeling deep inside. Oh yeah, I got a feeling it keeps me on. Oh yeah. So yeah, Beatles. Holy crap, I'm in full-on Beatles mood now. You watch 8 hours of this stuff and you feel like they're your best friends. It's awesome. So, just to remind you, this is a cinema verite style documentary, which means fly on the wall. No interviews, the littlest amount of hands-on-ness as possible. Just as little adulteration as possible, basically. Just showing as best you can what happened. Rock and roll. You too. So this one starts, basically it's crunch time to deciding what they're going to do, and they've decided upon some sort of roof concert. Oh, did you have to lick your butt on screen? Anyway, so we start out with Ringo trying out our Octopus's Garden, which he wrote, and then you can, George comes over and helps him, and, it's so funny, turns it into a song. He's like, oh, and then do this chord progression, and then this, and come back around. You're like, oh, man, these guys are getting good. Then, Linda Eastman's daughter shows up. I don't think that's Paul's daughter, because they weren't married yet. So I think it's Linda Eastman's daughter. I might be wrong. And none of this was in the actual movie, and it shows how cool the Beatles are, how good they are with kids and stuff. They're not imagine another you bring a kid to I don't know, a guar backstage. I'm sure they're all nice guys. It's just a persona, whatever. And she's like, we just got kittens, and John's like, you gonna eat them? It's like, no, you don't eat kittens. They don't taste nice. He's like, some people eat kittens. I don't know. It's great. I was like, that's me. That's exactly what I would have said. Except I'm not talented like him. So Glenn Johns is there, and he's better than Phil Spector, even though I know he's just an engineer, but I think he works better producing the Beatles. I think he gets it a little bit more. Because, Phil Spector, basically after they shoot this stuff, they're not fully happy with what they've recorded, and they've already broken up, so they just give everything to Phil Spector, who ends up doing some of their solo albums, I believe. Ram and Plastic Ono Band. Maybe not Ram, actually. Plastic Ono Band and All Things Must Pass, I guess. I don't know. Some songs don't need the Phil Spector treatment, and I like the kind of more toned down versions of them, because the idea of the album was to get back, to this more rudimentary style and not play the studio like they had been doing on the last few albums. That being said, that became what their strength was, and I think that's one of the things that hurts this album is, playing the studio and using the tape echo and the, doubling down and overdubbing, and changing tape speeds and all sorts of stuff. You get to really experiment, and that's what ends up happening more so on Abbey Road. She's so heavy. Things like that. Not that stuff doesn't happen on this, but that's what's cool. I'm glad we have this album. It is not technically their last album, though. It was the last one to be released because of all this kerfuffle, as we just said. I'm starting to realize, Yoko's amazing. Imagine, because they do let her sing a few times, just messing around, or not messing around, but it's imagine you get to sit in with the Beatles, and then they're like, hey, you can sing. Imagine the confidence of just going it's kind of amazing. Anyway, so the little girl's running around, and then she starts singing at one point, and someone in the background goes, hey, it's Yoko. It's oh, they're all aware of what she's doing. She's being counterculture by just screaming into the mic like a little child. I mean, Yoko Ono, musically, I'm not a huge fan of hers, but, and I knew that she wasn't the one who broke up the Beatles before watching this, but this confirms that not only did she not break up the Beatles, like, she's not doing anything wrong. Like, it's a little bit weird that she's there, but, because she's just sitting there silently beside John, but it's like, whatever, man. If it's like a, this is going to sound bad, but it's like a, it's like a dog that he needs. What's that called? It's like, not that she's a dog, but it's like he needs, I forget what that's called. It's like his safety pet. I don't know. That's coming out wrong, but you know what I mean? Like, he needs her as a chaperone to, like, get him through the day for whatever reason. And if that's what he needs, that's fine. History would have made you think that she was, like, screaming and yelling and running around the whole time. She says, like, 4 words in the 8-hour documentary. Anyway, George Martin, seeing him sit on the floor is weird because he's like James Bond, George Martin. He's like, he's so cool and suave, and, like, seeing him throwing a shaker up and down, knowing that he's probably had a few drinks, it's like, oh my God, James Bond might be a little bit drunk. I love George Martin. He's so cool. And learning about him in that Tune In book is crazy, his backstory. He is kind of a Lothario a bit, which you wouldn't have expected. He seems so buttoned down, It's so funny because all the engineers are all in, like, suits or in button-down shirts and ties and stuff, and then the Beatles are wearing, like, just madness, just, like, colorful fucking pirate wear, It's great. They're working on Let It Be, and then they go, we better work on it. And then he goes, well, we could edit these 2 cuts together. And John Lennon goes, edit? We're the Beatles. So good. So then the concert keeps getting pushed back. So there is, like, even if you're not a Beatles fan, I do think that he cleverly created some tension in there. I just think that you would find that some scenes would be overly drawn out if you weren't interested in the songs and watching the songs evolve. Other than that, I think it works for everybody, There's so many cool parts, like figuring out something and messing around with the stylophone. They get a stylophone for the first time, and everybody's kind of playing with it, but then they give it to Billy Preston, and he's, like, making music with it, like, instantly. It's like, oh, Jesus, I gotta get me a stylophone. Cool. Paul has a meeting at one point upstairs, and we get to see the rest of the Beatles working together, which is really fascinating. So you don't get to see just George, John, and Ringo working together almost never, And they're really productive. It's good. And they're kind of messing around, but they're having a good time. It's like Daddy's out, They can goof around a little bit more. So then they set up all the cameras, 5 on the roof, 3 on the street, and 1 hidden in a booth in the reception area. But it's so funny because now we can hide cameras so well. They're like, we have a hidden camera in the reception area. And then they cut to this big white box that has, like, a black slot in it. It's like, okay. Gee, I wonder what that is. It's like the size of a human, It's not a camera, I swear. They put, like, a Christmas tree ornament on it. It's for Christmas. It's January 30th, for crying out loud. Oh, we've left it up. Anyway, the last 50 minutes or so is basically the rooftop concert, which is all good. And what they really do differently, other than cleaning up the picture and the sound, which they've done throughout this whole documentary, and that's where the technology came in. Remember how I said I was going to look it up? Yeah, what they did was, like, save the negatives, basically, and really, really clean up the audio. That's why most people thought you couldn't do anything with it, because the audio was really all jumbled together, and they now have the AI technology to separate all the tracks. So you could separate the video and the audio tracks, because, like I was saying, they had the mics that were recording the music, but then they also had the mics for the sound crew, which were being recorded on a Nagra tape reel. The other stuff was being recorded onto, like, whatever, 2-inch master tape or something like that, but which wasn't rolling the whole time. The Nagra tape really was pretty much rolling a lot of the time. So they were able to, like, kind of separate voices, and I'm going to sneeze. I got a feeling in my nose. Oh, yeah. A little vitamin C will take care of that. Anyway, it's great. The cops show up, and they're, like, 12 years old. And they're like, and Mal Evans is just, like, giving them the runaround, being like, well, what you're hearing is the PAs. And they need the PAs because they're filming. But I think they're facing the PAs towards outside because it's better for the film. I can maybe get them to shut the PA, just, okay, why don't you go get them to shut the PAs off? He goes, if they let them play 2 more songs, we can't shut the PA. We shut some of them off. It's so awesome. Because they've just been told, basically, give them the run around until the last possible moment, until they eventually come upstairs, And it's just so funny to watch the cops kind of be dejected and stuff. And so there's more footage of that. The real big thing is that they do split screen. So when things are happening, since there were 9 cameras running, there's a lot of things happening at once. And what they do is they just show in, 3 screens or 4 screens or 2 screens, things that are happening simultaneously. And that's the real coup of that sequence, the thing that really raises above what we've already seen. Because that's the good part of the original Let It Be documentary, is getting to see that. So that's good. It's more complete. You feel like you get an understanding of the scene. There's more interviews with people on the street and stuff, which is always so great, just to see old people being like, I love what they're doing. You're like, oh, you would think that they'd be like, eh. My favorite shot, maybe in the whole entire thing, and I think it would make an amazing poster, is the wide shot from across the street, because the cinema lights, the film lights, make them look very saturated and bright against the bleak. There's the crowd and everything, but there's just the bleak London skyline and gray sky, and then there's just kind of this area, that's almost overly illuminated, and it's almost they look holy or something, or divine, or photoshopped or something. I think it's really cool. I'm going to try and look that, if they find that picture online, or just rip a screen cap and make it my desktop picture, That's what a true fan would do. Anyway, what else did I love? I love that they're always just eating toast and butter and marmalade. That's great. I love there's one part with the cop, which is so funny, because everybody, it's so funny. He goes, the cop goes, well, if it's a film, can't you dub the sound later onto the film? I love how everybody's an expert. It's like, oh, no, the whole point is that it's live. We want to record it live. And the cop's like, great. There's a great moment where all of them, when the cops show up, Paul sees him first, and he sees the cop, and he goes, woo! In the song, he goes, woo! And they're all like, and you see Billy, because they're right over Billy's shoulder, and, given that it's, 1970, and he's a black dude on the roof, I don't think any black guy would feel comfortable with 3 cops standing behind him when they're doing something illegal. But certainly in this time period, he's like, this isn't funny. This is something bad's about to happen. And the Beatles are like, they're not going to do anything. We're the Beatles. He's like, you guys might be the Beatles. I'm Billy Preston. It all turned out fine, though. There's a really great, definitive George moment where his amp has been switched off, and he indignantly rushes back and clicks it back on. It's like, what the fuck? Awesome moment. Then the thing that I didn't expect was that there's 10 or 11 minutes after the concert, that's kind of where it ends in the Let It Be thing, of them listening to it played back with all their significant others and stuff. It's beautiful. It's the most important part, showing that they aren't hateful of one another, that they are going in their different directions like most people do. It's amazing that they got 10 years together and created what they created, but that they're not, it wasn't this punch up like they make it sound like in the history books or in the retelling of it. That fucking bitch Yoko broke on. That's none of the. I mean, it's a combination of a million things, but it's really that they all just kind of want to do their own thing, except for Ringo. Ringo just wants to be in the Beatles, man. And that's what makes him the greatest Beatle. Anyway, it's great, man. I loved it. There's so little conflict amongst the Beatles. The conflict is really trying to figure out how to manage the music, and the idea of the Beatles as an idea kind of above the people themselves who are in it, After this, I just realized I just want to be a Beatle. I'll never be happy in life until I'm a Beatle, which means I'll never be happy, which is a little bit of a bummer. But I was talking to Dylan, my roommate, about it, and it's our whole generation thinks that they need to be the number one, because he's in science, and he I know deep down he wants to win a Nobel Peace Prize, you know what I mean? Just if someone's in politics, I know deep down they kind of want to be president, you know? I mean, whereas like back in the day, it just was like, I hope I can have a family, or like, I hope you know, I make it to retirement. It didn't, we weren't sold. And I think it's a combination of the time period in which we grew up with all this emerging technology and a good economy. Like in the 90s, I'm talking about, you know, and all this, just everything seemed to be on this huge uptick, and we're coming to the millennium. And then all of our parents were like hippy dippy flower power people who were like, you can do whatever you want, baby, you know? And it's like Chris Rock said, you tell your kids you can do whatever you want if they're hiring. You know? So I love this. This is I started making a list last night of what the best stuff I've seen this year is, you know, that came out this year, because obviously I'll do a recap at the end of December, my top 10 favorite things of the year, and this is going to be a hard one to beat, not to spoil that list, but man, this is awesome. And a few people, like fans or friends of mine who I know are fans of Beatles, have been getting in touch with me, being like, man, this is the holy grail. Especially Quinn. He was a former student of mine, and he was like, yeah, this is awesome. This is like a whole new day, basically. He didn't say a whole new day, but hey, let's do a little bit of music. That's what the Beatles would have wanted us to do. The Beatles. We'll start with some distorted drums. I don't know what's going on there. Okay, guys. All you need is love. Take it easy. Don't let me down. Don't